So we lived in Mount Shasta, which isn't as quite far north, but it also gets wintry, cloudy, short days in the winter time. And what I found is that I really had to go outside and during the winter especially and connect with the colors. Even though there's very little colors in wintertime, right? It's pretty much white snow and trees, but it was almost like I was trying to, not trying, but I was imagining collecting energy from the sun, even though I couldn't see the sun, but just the sunlight that is in nature. And a lot of people ask me questions like, what do we do if it's cloudy out? Well, there's
Yeah.
green. Like if you look behind Gary, that's all like the color of your heart chakra right there. And
And,
that's
and we
well,
got the blue for the throat.
right. And you can connect. That's all stored sunlight. Like that's green because of sunlight. And we can extract that energy.
You know, I just realized something because when we started this online movement worldwide during the pandemic, we have our heart and then we have our throat chakra constantly in every video. As you started saying that, I just realized that it's been a little bit hard to explain to people how we went from, zero to millions of people in a couple months. And I think a lot of it has to do with the environment of where we're sending it from.
Well, yeah, and that's impacting your energetic field as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, heart and throat. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. You're leading with that. And everybody else can feel it. And so it's very resonant to a wide group of people. And there's multiple of you, right? And
Yeah.
so you're touching bases with all different types of people.
So that's a good point. So how do you, like wintertime, do you adjust your schedule? Like you get up a little bit later, or do you try to keep things the same? And then this next question is, when you travel to different time zones, do you try to stay on the same circadian rhythm?
So I'll answer the last question. So when I travel, I try to immediately get into the circadian rhythm of wherever I'm at. And
Right.
the best way to do that I found is like literally soon as you get off the airplane, get the ground, get your feet into the earth, like sand into the ocean, but just even if you piece of grass or a piece of dirt and stand there and that grounds you into that location and that cycle, because everything's cycling. And if we go to a different part of the planet, it's a few degrees off from what you're used to, and that can really screw you up in terms of jet lag and not being able to sleep. But getting connected to the earth is how you get back in tune. So that was your second question.
For short trips as well?
You mean like if I go like
weekend.
Even on like a road trip? Yeah, if I drive 5 hours, 10 hours. So I've developed sort of like it's a sensation, and to me it feels like a taste. Like I taste the earth through my feet when I go to different places, even just different places within my locale. So I could go to a mountaintop and the earth tastes, I don't know how to explain it, right? Because we don't have a word in our language for this, but to me, it feels more like a taste than a feeling or a seeing or a hearing. But the earth tastes differently through my feet, being on a mountaintop versus being on a beach versus, being in a forest. And even where there's like a lot of people, it feels a little bit different to me in my feet. So definitely when I go to a new place, it's just like seeing it. It's stimulating to look at the different things, but for me, it's also stimulating, and I enjoy feeling the ground and how it interacts with my feet in different places. 1 hour away, 10 hours away, 19 hours away. So yeah, it's definitely something that I enjoy and I partake in, and I've developed. It's subtle, but I've developed something that I can like barely grasp onto that signals to me the difference in the earth, depending on
Well,
where I am.
I mean, here's a fact. So my, they, I mean, this is one of those ones that people just kind of gloss over, but anything that touches the bottom of my feet is absorbed to my blood within 5 minutes. And that's on a normal, not fascially aware, everyday human. That's why when we want to detox, we put like onions in our socks or you put those foot pads on. So this is why I don't walk on asphalt because of the oil and chemicals. This is why I don't walk on grass that's been fertilized and stuff like that. But as we open ourselves up fascially, and this is what you're describing, like somebody, like I say this all the time, but I wouldn't put something on my skin that I wouldn't eat. And there's this belief that it's like, oh yeah, I'll use this for my skin, I'll spray it on, or I'll step in it, but I wouldn't put it in my mouth. And I'm like, there is no real difference. And that's literally just a warped belief system that we've gone on.
I had a girlfriend when I was like 17 or 19, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And she was in cosmetology school. And she told me that even in cosmetology school, they taught her that anything that touches your skin is in every single organ in your body, like in under a minute. So we feel like the skin is a barrier because that's how we think about things. We think about like separateness. And so we see this as a shell, but the skin isn't made as a shell. Our environment right now is very unnatural to our bodies. Our bodies are not made to shell out the exterior. Our bodies are made to interact, communicate, transmit both directions to the exterior because we are Earth. We literally are nature. We are Earthlings. So our skin, especially in our feet, our hair, everything, there's interaction. This is not a shell. This is not protection. And that is something to be aware of, not from a fearful standpoint, but if you do go to a beach and you're walking barefoot across the sand, it is something in my mind to think, do I walk across this parking lot where I parked my car barefoot, or do I put on sandals for 20 steps to get across the parking lot, then take them off when I get into the sand, and then put them back on when I come back here? Because I know that all of the oil and the grit and all of the nastiness of that pavement that's been there for the last 8 months since the last time it rained is going to go straight into my bloodstream if I just decide to walk across it barefoot. And yeah, we should definitely be aware of that, how we clean our houses, the chemicals we put on the floor. Like, clean up your cupboards, clean up the chemicals out of your houses. And if you have rugs, try not to get polyester, fire retardant soaked rugs all over your house. Like, opt for natural fibers in your clothes as well.
So here's something that was in my journey of cleaning up. I grew up eating organic food and I focused on it in my life, but I didn't really think about it so much in my personal care products. Like, I didn't want to sweat, so I used deodorant with aluminum. This is like right back in the early stages of the garage. I remember it was like 2014. I'm like, no, I can't do this anymore. So I had one of the girls make me a deodorant with essential oils and coconut oil. And I used to keep it in the freezer. So I go in the freezer every day and do it. Well, one thing that was happening was I was doing really good, but every Thursday I was feeling like drained and frustrated, and I couldn't figure out. I could know that it was Thursday every Thursday, and I'm like, what is it about Thursdays? And what it dawned on me after a while, because this has been going on for a couple of months, I had no energy, I was more agitated, I was more hungry. Then I realized Wednesdays was my cleaning day at my apartment. Mm-hmm. And so I would stand in the shower and walk on the floors that were chemically laced.
Right. Same thing with pesticides outside. Like, some people notice that they get sick when Terminex, whatever these companies are called, come and they spray, and then their air conditioning picks that all up and shoots it out through the house. And we also have to be aware of our neighbors as well. And also a good thing is just make a rule to take off your shoes before you come into the house if you're going to be walking around barefoot, because everybody that's walking around with their shoes all day long is then going to be walking around through the house, and then you're walking around barefoot. So you kind of have to choose. Do you walk around with something on your feet all the time or barefoot? But this is getting a little bit into like fear based, and we can overcome all of this, but just
It's to be aware. It's to be aware.
Yeah.
It's like, here's where it goes. I don't have the fear, but I use acid water from my Alcaviva machine in the floor cleaning, and I use the Shark steam cleaner. Well, not the Shark, but another one. I use that to clean the floors. I use the acid water to clean my counters and my sinks, and I just put the acid water in a spray bottle so that that's clear. And because you got all these natural soaps and stuff like that, but there's still soap. Like I wouldn't drink it. And then as you said, like I always have my shoes off. I'm always barefoot. Like it's crazy because I wear shoes on an average an hour a week. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's partly my lifestyle allows for that. But I'm actually being serious because I only wear them. I only wear them from the car over the stuff to the beach and then back, or if I go to the mall or something like that, which I don't do very often. So these are the little things that I've done in my life. And when, like, I'll tell you this, these shirts, it was not easy to do. Because we wanted shirts that were organic. These are hemp. The dyes had to be non-toxic, all this other stuff, and they not sweatshopped and all that kind of stuff. Well, it took us 2 years to find a manufacturer that could actually deliver shirts that we could have in scale. So we had these temporary ones all around, but we couldn't buy like 5,000 of them if we needed. And so these are things that we had to do. And I see that the world is starting to come together. Like people like ourselves are starting to come together and make stuff more accessible so that we can actually do this. We can actually live a life that's cleaner.
Yeah, I'm partnered with Purium, and we're even, switching out of plastic containers to home compostable packaging. And it's taken us a few years to do it. And I don't really want to say the amount of money, but it's an insane, it's like more money than most companies can make in a year. It's I don't want to say a number, but it's
a lot of money. I noticed that the packaging is compostable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
And then we have an alliance that we're setting up to make it easier, and we're corralling all of the manufacturers of compostable packaging together so that we can shift the entire industry. And I'm just saying this not to brag, but just to say that to change the world, it takes effort from one person to start with, and that's all of us, and then eventually to collaborate with others, and then we can shift entire industries.
Well, Purium's got some great products. I mean, we're going to actually carry those products on our website, or have a link to it so people can get them sometime shortly. They have great products. I mean, and that's, this is what I want to do, is I want to support companies that that give a shit, do something about the environment. We had a thing in Vancouver. The news story, they went and did a news story. They went and put geotags on their recycling.
Like where it goes.
Right. And they did a news story in Vancouver. And in North America, not everywhere, but a lot of places where we spend a lot of time and energy, like where we have to recycle, clean bottles, all that stuff. And what they're finding, it's either going to incineration or trash. It's not being recycled. And this is happening all over North America. I know some places like Japan, they really do it. And I noticed that also that people that are making products from recycled materials are getting the recycled materials from overseas.
Because there's none available here.
Very little, not enough to, and people think they're doing all the right stuff and doing this. Well, we've been put through this way of, and this perfect for Raw Reality Wednesdays, because it's a reality check. they put through all these steps to do this. We have these extra containers, extra work. People spend a lot of time picking up to recycle, and then at the end of it, it's just going into the landfill or to the incinerator.
That's because there's not enough people that are participating. So we all get to realize that if we're not part of the decision-making processes in our local areas, then whoever's in charge is going to do whatever's easiest for them to do, whatever is going to serve their agenda.
Right.
And so we just moved into Ventura and we're looking at like, how do we get on the city council, right? So that we can talk to them about like installing bike racks on the main street here. Cause we noticed that like our yoga studio has like a mobile bike rack that if you put your bike on it, somebody can just take the whole bike rack and put it in the back of their truck. So like if we want recycling to actually be 100% recycling, then some of us get to be there and make sure that policies are made that make it easier for the whole thing to go through.
Well, I think that's coming, but that's part of what you're doing. I mean, you're bringing truth and reality to the situation. I mean, literally, that's why we call this raw reality, because you're going out and looking at situations and looking at what's going on in the world and saying, well, it's not exactly the way that they said it is. And people call that a conspiracy theory. But, it's ironic that like we have to pay extra to label all of our produce and stuff like that organic, when chemicals are the new kid on the block. They've only been really around for like 50 years, but only in our food massively for the last 35 to 40 years. So why don't we label stuff chemical rather than organic? See how that switch has been flipped, and that's only merely a perception because it costs more money to do chemicals most of the time than it does organic.
And then, well, it's the lobbyists, right? And people don't realize that policy gets made in governments because of lobbyists. The fact that corporations can have lobbyists lobbying, which essentially means paying politicians to make decisions, the fact that that's legal is mind-blowing to me. It's crazy. And yeah, for me, it's all about personal responsibility. And so even like Erewhon, the best grocery store ever, they have recycling next to the garbage, and then you watch the guy come and he just takes the recycle bag and the garbage bag and throws them into the same like container, and they're just all going to the dumpster. It's just all for optics, the whole recycle thing at most.
So you're actually seeing that down there too?
Yeah, I love Erewhon, but they even don't have anybody holding them accountable for making the right decision when it comes to recycling and reusing. And who even knows if the whole I looked into recycling as an industry as well, and I'm not sure if I think that the whole thing needs an overhaul as well. I think that maybe some people don't feel like it is actually helping the environment to do the whole recycle thing, because it's still producing a lot of pollution in order to recycle things. But the use of plastic is really the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, if you go back, when I was a kid, the milk came in glass jars. You took the glass jars back, they cleaned them, and they reused them.
Right.
I mean, that's where personal responsibility comes in. It's like changing habits and behaviors, right?
Yeah.
Using dishes, getting a good set of dishes that have closable containers on the lid, and get them, because that's all we had when I was a kid. We didn't buy saran wrap. We didn't buy plastic wrap. And then what we're doing is we're taking hot food, we wrap it with plastic, then we put it in the refrigerator, and it off gases right into the food.
So, yeah, aluminum foil also is another thing that you just wrap your food in, and that's not the greatest for you either. But that saran wrap is like very, how can I put it? It's like soft plastic, right? So that just goes straight into your food, straight into you.
Yeah,
It's not actually made to, like, it's not regulated to not go into things, especially if
right.
you're putting hot stuff into it. And then the plastic containers as well. And even takeout. I know we're just getting into what not to do in reality, but like
Yeah,
takeout, when you go somewhere and they put the stuff in like hot food into plastic containers, and now you have like a soup in a plastic container, and you're like, man, I know the water was like close to boiling when they put it in this plastic container, and
yeah,
now I'm going to eat it. And people, please do me a favor, and if you get a box of tea that has plastic bags that hold the tea, either return that tea or throw it away, because that's, I don't know who started that trend, but do not drink tea that's made with plastic bags, because that all that plastic is going into you, and plastic can poison you and it bogs down your entire system.
yeah. Endocrine disruptors. It's that's why, I mean, people are, wondering why they're so sick, and they go for all the big ones, right? But the little things that we do every day, it's the products that we put on us, it's the plastic cutting boards, it's wrapping our food in plastic, it's all these things. It's wearing plastic on our bodies. I
Right.
mean, all the microfibers and materials like that, we're actually wearing plastics.
So if you see polyester, if you see rayon, um, uh, just basically you're looking for natural fibers. Even cotton, you can opt. It's very easy to find organic cotton, and then there's even a certification, OKX, I believe it is, where it's like safe materials are used and it's certified safe, so that you know that the fields aren't sprayed with glyphosate, and then you're basically, cotton is one of the most glyphosate sprayed crops there are. So we're basically wearing glyphosate if we're just wearing like cheap cotton stuff. So we get to all upgrade our wardrobe and feel good about it. There's something called morphic fields, which is looked at as pseudoscience by the Western scientists, but there's these basically universal fields of energy that travel throughout the universe, and they go through time, so they happen instantaneously. You can feel and sense and measure scientifically morphic fields from stars billions of miles away instantaneously as it's happening. It's a really awesome phenomenon, and two of the things that block those are aluminum and PVC plastic. So basically plastics and aluminum. And so if we've got universal energies that are coming in and we're wearing plastic all over us, then we're not being able to, like I said, interact with the universe because of the clothing. And if we also start thinking about our chakras as energies that emanate from our body, and then we're covering ourselves in plastic or silicone breast implants that's blocking the heart chakra, then we're also unable to communicate with people. And we do this communication. We all know it. That's why we shake each other's hands. It's to communicate through the energy fields in our hands. That's why we hug each other if we want to really connect, because that's the heart to heart communication. We don't want plastic in between that.
Yeah. Somebody was saying here, I have low libido, armpit hair thinning, bald spot on goatee, facial hair brittle, 23. So what that is actually all the stuff that we're talking about is what contributes to that. That's an autoimmune function. That means you have some issues with the small intestine. That's where the 28-day reset happens, because it's for certain that most people, including myself, I mean, people ask in the chat there where I get my clothes. Well, these shorts that I'm wearing, Jason found them, and it was hard to find shorts that were completely organic, and they were black, and they were cotton, and the dyes were okay and stuff like that. It wasn't easy. Now, what we're going to be doing is taking the ones that we have found and referencing them either in blog posts or whatever, or putting them up in stores. And if you find stuff that's good, share it in the community. This is why, because we have a lot of resources. people to help. And it still is hard for us to get this today because the prices have been driving everything down, and even the good quality brands have moved to cheaper materials. So this person with the low libido, armpit hair thinning, those are all issues that come from hormone dysregulation, endocrine disruptors, and the 28-day reset. But it's really important that to move the tissue around the small intestine, belly button torque, the psoas release and stuff like that, because you can do everything right, take all the supplements, do all the autoimmune, you can drink your celery juice and all that, but if your tissue's not moved, you're not getting the small intestine cleared out.
I also want to add that when doing the fascial maneuvers and you're, like the totally twisted where one leg is crossed over the other, make sure that you're feeling the energy down there in your root and in your sexual organs, that whole area. Make sure that's activated and rooted down into the earth. And from there, then you're opening up, right? You're driving that energy up through your body, and it's spiraling up through your body.
Let's do one. Talk us through it. Let's do one. That would be really cool.
Just the regular totally twisted.
Yeah,
so
let's do a regular.
This is how I'll tell you how I think about it, right? Because it's a little bit different than how you guys. So obviously, let's just take. Can't really see myself, but right foot goes over left foot. Right hand goes underneath left armpit here. So right away, what I'm doing is I'm thinking, can I press down in my feet and can I press up higher and basically build that tension, pressing down through my feet and up through my feet. And then I work my way up into my calves, into my thighs, and like I said, into the pelvis. Can I be pressing down and up at the same time, almost feeling like this stretching apart, but it's not really a stretch.
I can feel that. And
then obviously we squeeze the root a little bit of tension there, and then stack the spine, and we're on a strong pelvis as we're pressing our spine up through the top of our head. And just find that alignment, and then as we twist, so we're twisting our torso to the right, our head to the left. Now what I also do here is I take my left hip, and I make sure that my left hip is also going to the left, following my face. So left hip is going to the left, head is going to the left, torso is going to the right. And then we stick our tongue in the mouth, or in the cheek, 6 breaths through the nose. Making sure to check in with the feet, the calves, the thighs, the pelvis, make sure the belly's in. Good. So we're done with those 6. Inhale through the mouth. Inhale more. More. Exhale. Inhale through the mouth. Mouth. Inhale. Exhale. Twist a little bit more. Root. Inhale through the mouth. 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 Pull in the stomach, lower stomach, press down through the feet and twist a little more and release the exhale as you're doing that. Lock your eyes onto something. Inhale through the nose, out the mouth 6 times. When I'm doing this one, I'm focusing on my left hip and seeing if there's any way to press it down. Is there any way to move my left hip back as my torso spins to the right? And my left hip isn't necessarily moving, but I'm just rooting it down to the left.
I feel that.
Mind.
Actually, yeah, this is a really good way to walk through this. I love this.
Yeah, so we can unwind. We don't have to do the whole thing, or should we do the whole thing?
Yeah, let's do the whole thing.
All right, let's do it. All right, so same thing, root down through the feet, calves, thighs. Make sure that your pelvis isn't tilted a certain way. So for me, I have to focus on moving the front of my pelvis up because I've overused my quads, so they're a little tight. So I make sure that my pelvis is aligned, and I'm pressing down as my spine comes up. And turn our head to the right. Maybe lock your right pelvis to the right a little bit as you turn your torso to the left.
feel the ribs opening up as you do that. Left or right cheek press with your tongue, and 6 breaths through the nose. Good. Inhale through the mouth. Inhale. Inhale. Exhale. Do that again. As you're doing that, grab your glutes and press into your heels, through the back of your legs, as you're pressing yourself tall and twisting. Exhale. Inhale through the mouth. Inhale. Inhale. Press down deep into the center of the earth, and your head's connected to the sky. And let that breath go. Good. Inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, out through the mouth. 4 more. As you do, pay attention to that right hip. Make sure that's locking and coming back and down, pressing into the earth. Feel yourself opening up from that point. And we can unravel.
Wow, Ashley, that was I want my coaches to do that with you. That is awesome.
Yeah, so for me, there's so much tension in that TFL, right? So like people can
Well,
see,
then turn it
like
into
right here.
Turn it into a cappuccino then. Tensor fascial latte.
Right,
Turn
right.
it into a cappuccino.
I always feel funny saying that, tensor fascial latte.
Yeah,
Fascial
I know.
TFL.
It's the latte thing that always got me. I have to laugh all the time. You go to Starbucks. Well, not that I ever go there, but can I have a TFL? What is that? It's a tensor fascial latte.
Oh yeah, I can feel that right now. So this stuff has really helped me connect with my body.
I like, you know what it is that because you've developed this practice on your own, you just went and took the movements and made them yours. That's the whole point of this. Your narration through there changes my experience. I feel really good. Because, I get in my own head, I do it the same way all the time. And if I do it the same way all the time, my body's used to the cues. But when somebody else tells me to do it differently, then I actually get a whole new experience.
Yeah. When I coached fitness classes, it was, I did it for 10 years, like 6 to 8 classes a day. And so I could just simply say, do a push-up, but I wouldn't do that. I would be talking about like how your hands are interacting with the floor and how you can feel that channel coming up. And I would really be like telling a story to people of how they can be feeling their body differently while doing a push-up. Same thing with like a squat. Like I always start with the squat with the toes, how are your toes interacting with the ground? Are your pinky toes, can you feel them? And then I transferred that into meditation, right? When you're meditating, you can literally, especially with Kriyas, right? It's bringing your consciousness and your focus into the part of your body, and that's bringing energy there. And it's almost like you become aware. You go into your joints, you go into your toes and your fingers and even your voice. You can feel your voice coming out of you and originating from different parts of your body when you're chanting. And you can start chanting from different parts of your body, your gut, your heart, your head, your whole body. You can start chanting where the origin comes from outside of you, like the center of the earth, through you, out of your mouth, up, coming down, out of your mouth. And that's where, like, if you look at technology, that's where like this pyramid stuff, it's directing how energy is flowing into a room, and it's changing the environment, it's changing the frequency and the effect of what you're doing. And so when I got into these maneuvers, it was the same thing. I was like, okay, I'm not just going to twist, I'm actually going into those parts of my body and almost like I'm playing with it. But it's all just imagination with my consciousness. And then that tells me how to move my body. But I'm just like, I'm feeling around with my consciousness into the fascia, which essentially is all nervous tissue or nervous nerve endings anyways, right? So what
Yeah.
we think of as our mind and our brain, it's not here. Like that's how we think of the mind, but from a yogic standpoint, the mind comes in from the universe, from like an ethereal plane, and it comes in, and we're almost like an antenna. So as opposed to just coming to here and thinking about my body as a machine and my mind is making the decisions, I, instead of bringing my mind into here, I bring my mind into the movement, right? I'm like, my whole consciousness is in my shoulder on some of these twisting things. Today I was talking about the hips, but sometimes I'm like in back here because this is all also locked up on me.
Heart meridian. So, a couple things come up. Number one is people know what a cellular antenna looks like. It's a curly thing with a straight line and a ball on the top. When you take our sacrum and you MRI it, it's a triangle, but inside of it, when you MRI it, it's a curly thing. Then you've got this long piece of spine with a big ball on the top. We are literally a cellular antenna. The most dense part of us is the bones. and that actually is built to send and receive. And our DNA is a double helix with telomeres on the end, which is the antenna within the fascia, which is the mind is coming in from the outside, which is our auric field. And then we perceive it. But if we perceive it, if we're stressed out, we only perceive it in here. But if we have consciousness, like if we take the stress out, we can step outside of our bodies and perceive it from the field. And that's where we have self-awareness or self-actualization. If you actually look at a satellite, you have like the bowl, which what Gary's saying. Gary, you just explained that amazingly. I think about it almost the same, but I use a satellite as my sort of reference point, because a satellite, you have a bowl and that's receiving signal, and then that's all pushing it up into basically another, like a top area. So it's bouncing from this bowl to the top, and then it comes in, and in the middle is like a hole, and that's where it goes. It goes into. Maybe satellite's the wrong. Well,
word.
okay,
It's not
so
a satellite. What are those things called? Stimulated me to explain it this way. So we have 3 diaphragms in the body. People think we only have one. We have a bowl here facing down, and we have a bowl here facing up, and these two are sending signals to each other, but they're counter rotating. And we have one here that goes up and then down, and it's a bowl down and a bowl up. So we actually have satellites within us. Yeah. What are those things? They're not called satellites. What are the things called that are receiving? Aren't the satellites the things that are going around? Yeah, it's a satellite receiver. Receiver, like, yeah, because it's got a big bowl, and it brings all the light into the center of the bowl, and then it has a receiver up here, so it brings it in, it bounces and goes. But that's the same way when we are around us. Fascia is our entropic field. So the only thing is that fascia, the only part of it we see is in the body because it's dense enough. We don't see it, but it's there. So basically, we have this field like the Earth, and we're receiving signals from that field, and we receive it through portals or gateways. And that's where you get like spinal energetics or network spinal analysis or energy work. But then inside the body, we have all these things like the domes inside the body that are communicating for us to stand, walk, breathe, all that stuff. And then furthermore, we're made up of layers of fascia that are then torqued. And it's well known now that the heart isn't a pump. It's a vortex. It spins blood. So that means that every other organ is the same thing. So each organ is made up of all 10 layers of fascia that make up each other organ. So it's all like a big balloon, like Russian doll, like this. And then part of it gets twisted up here, twisted down there for the organs. So that's why, by the way, most people don't know this, but the organs have the highest density of olfactory nerve cells are in our organs. So they have an intranet in the body. That's how
and that's why a smell or a sound or a vibration, that's why it has such a visceral effect to our memory. And remember, if I was to dismember you, I'd be taking and cutting parts off and pulling them apart, dismember. But to remember is to take all of the parts of data and remember to put it back, to member it again, put it back together. Because we have an incident that happened over here where I hit my hip, but then I have my liver angry about it, and then I have the narrative that I told about it. And those three things have to come together to triangulate to have a memory. This is why Alzheimer's and that, this is where the memory goes fuzzy, because it's trying to triangulate through the fascia, and then they got this fascia is water, and they got these little bits of metal through it. So the signal goes boing, 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 boing. It doesn't have enough time to come back in a cohesive unit. That's why people who do fascial maneuvers get a better memory, better sight, better sound.
Yeah, heavy metals are big when it comes to Alzheimer's.
Forget about it.
Back to the antennas, right?
Does that mean everybody in New York has Alzheimer's? Forget about it. Forget about it.
That's what they're saying. They're verbalizing what they're sensing. So we mentioned antennas, which if you think about a radio, right? We wouldn't make the mistake that there's little, like when we hear people singing in a radio, we wouldn't make the mistake of thinking that there's little people inside of the radio that's responsible for those voices, because we know that it's an antenna.
There's not?
Because there's an antenna, and we can easily like bring our awareness to the fact that that antenna is receiving signal, and then the radio is transmuting that into sound, and then we hear it. But with us, it's really easy to think that everything is happening within us, and that we're the independent organism that's making all the decisions. And we fail to recognize the antenna aspect and question, like, where is this desire coming from? Where is this thought coming from? And trust, right? We can trust those downloads, as they say.
So when I started looking at fascia a new way, I had to look at how the brain and the body process it differently. So I rebuilt a model that made sense based on my observation. Number one is that the whole human experience is a bunch of energy. At the center of that energy is this stubby, lethargic, what we call a human being, that's trying to understand what we're being told all the time. And that crystal that we have, the fascia, is communicating with it. And if the crystal's plugged, we don't get the right information. And we were taught that the brain moves the body, but before the brain connects with movement, we have to have an emotion called a desire. Because I can have a thought and no desire to act on it, so I don't move. So emotion precedes motion. That means that, and then stimulation. So if I come and touch you, you automatically get a stimulation, which creates an emotion and then a thought. And that thought is attached to a narrative. So basically, it's stimulation first, and that stimulation is coming from the outside field.
Yeah, the word sequence just came to mind as you were saying that. It's like a sequence.
It is. And this is why when I'm fasting, because I've done a lot of it this last couple of years, when I'm not eating food, 80% of my processing power of my brain comes back. And when I've done it over many times, where on a repetitive basis, it's like the first time you take alcohol, you just feel stupid drunk. But after a while, you can get the gradients of it. I'm drunk, but I can still work. I'm drunk, I can still talk. But the first time you do it, it's like crash out. So when I fast over a long period of times, I can feel the gradients of change. So what I notice when I'm fasting, because I get my processor power back. So in other words, I see stuff, and my brain can translate it into my awareness that other people don't see. So I see the unseen, basically. And I notice it's funny because I joke with Cynthia, because right before she's about to say something critical to me, her left finger goes like this. Her little baby finger goes. I can see it. And I'm like, stop it. She doesn't even know that there's a thought yet. She's not even thinking it. I'm like, stop it right now. I'm catching it before it even gets into the brain.
It's true.
Yeah. There's this book, Catching the Light. The very beginning of it, they give some examples. I don't need to find it, but like literally the first chapter, they give some examples of blind people that get functioning eyes installed into their body, and they can't see. It's not necessarily the eyes.
It's not.
That do the seeing. There needs to be a part of our mind that accepts vision first, and then processes it, like goes through the effort to process it, and then we can use these tools essentially to bring in the information.
Correct.
The mind processes that all to the experience of vision. And so what you're saying, being able to sense these other things that we're not taught about in school really takes us accepting that they exist, and then going through the practice so that we, just like riding a bike, we start to learn and teach ourselves these extra sensory abilities.
I think you're going to love this. We're reaching out to an organization, a company that does this. They put on these blindfolds and they start teaching you how to read and see and observe. So they read with blinders on, and they teach kids to do this and adults. But then they go to playing like table tennis and all that with completely blacked out, where they're just interpreting the information from the field. So they have a process to teach you to do this. And we're reaching out to them because I'm like, I want to do this. Because all we're doing is the eyes are interpreting data. Someone who's blind, like what we do is we create a picture. Someone who's blind, who's never seen before, still creates a picture in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Because we communicate to ourselves through our nervous system through picture.
Right. And the pineal gland is also, the inner eye. And it's not like they don't dream, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they still have the sensation. Even it's probably different than how we do it, or maybe it's the same. I don't know. I never thought.
I'm super excited. If you want to do this with us, we're reaching out to them. I mean, they do it like over 6 or 8 weeks. You got all these exercises, and they basically train you to read blindfolded.
Well, wasn't there's like a 30-minute Netflix show on somebody that did this. It's a fiction show, but some of the lessons in the show is about somebody that trained himself to be able to read cards without being able to see them, right? And then you can win at poker. And
yeah, but I mean, this is real.
Right.
It's like Lisa.
And he learns from a yogi.
You remember that company with the glasses or with the blinders that teaches you to read and plays? Yeah. So when we do that, Rod, do you want to be on? We're going to do it for our team.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that goes into all of this, right? Because remote viewing as well. I mean, remote viewing is another version of.
Yeah, I mean, it's real. The CIA has documents on it. They teach people.
Right. And so this is just being able to view it's local viewing with.
So this comes back to it. You watch that guy on MLB. He's talking to this reporter. You might have seen this. And somebody hits a ball. It's going to come right at this girl. He's talking to her. She's facing there. It's coming from behind. He goes in, catches the ball, and he goes like that, throws it away. And the question is, like, how does that happen? And it's because, athletes have trained themselves to interpret the field, and they don't know how they're doing it. It's like when we get up and walk, we don't think about the mechanics of walking. But it took us 9 months to just stand up. And we had to pattern that process of doing that, all the different components of walking. And so the interpretation of the field is something that we can do. It's just that we're taught that we can't, which these programs change it for like people who are blind. It literally changes it, but but if I'm told you're blind, you can't see, this is going to be this way for your life, you just accept it.
And that goes with being able to like see things before you see them with your eyes, right? Or to know things before you know them with your eyes. And I started experimenting with that in like elementary school. We would, like trying to grab onto psychic abilities. And what I found is that I was able to do it. I was able to guess, because to me, I just thought I was guessing. It was like I was able to guess things before they would happen, and I could win little contests. I never really developed it because I was a sports person. So what took priority in my mind was developing my physical body for hockey. But definitely even in hockey, where it's very physically dominating and safety, and like it was for me, I was the bruiser. So I was always trying to hurt somebody else. But also that means that everybody on the other team was trying to hurt me. And so it's kind of like not to disrespect actual warriors, but it was kind of like a war zone for me that I grew up in. Every single day of my life, I was playing hockey, trying to hurt somebody or trying to protect myself from being hurt. And there is like some weird sensation where you can see or feel out of the back. Like if in hockey, there's boards. So if I'm skating to the boards and the puck is in the corner, I have to go get the puck and somehow be able to tell what's going on behind me, because there's somebody coming full blast behind me that's trying to kill me, essentially. And like, which way do I turn? Which little technique do I do without being able to see that? And there is something weird that, I mean, yeah, you're using your ears to hear, but there's also just like a connection. You can kind of feel the intention of the person behind you. Yeah. And it's almost like a wrestling. How do I maneuver? It's like an energetic wrestling to get it so he's not accurately going to hit me as a target. It's like I have to unlatch myself from his target so that he doesn't make impact. It's like a crazy thing.
When you're, I mean, it's all about the sensation, and good athletes naturally know this, right? Like Wayne Gretzky used to say, I don't go to where the puck is, I go to where the puck's going to be. Right. And when you're playing hockey and the puck goes in the corner, you got to get the puck out of there.
You're on a roll, baby.
Yeah.
I know. It's hard sometimes because I always branch off, and you have to believe me.
Believe you.
Like a tree, branch off and believe.
Right. I'm trying to come up with a joke to roll it, like continue the momentum, but
it's hard because it's hard. It's hard because once you get into these things, it's like they just keep rolling like a pin.
Where do we go from here?
I think we're coming up to our time. We can keep going. I mean, I love the conversations because they're not scripted. They just go wherever they're going to go. And again, I encourage people to follow your stuff. You're always producing content that's forcing people to think a different way. And this is what's been taken out of society. It's the right to think a different way. And like it's not okay to think a different way, and you're making it okay to think a different way. Just like, like we focused a little bit on urine, just so we could piss some people off. And that
came back to me, by the way. Somebody like that had some impact in my business world as well, where that came up and somebody brought that up.
Yeah, but it's like we took a hit about 7,000 or 8,000 people decided to disappear off of our social media, and I'm watching it and I'm like, thank God. I mean, because what they're doing is they're consciously holding us back, so we're clearing out some of the dead wood. But we had 7,000 or 8,000 go, but we had like 5 or 6,000 new people come in. And what I like about it is that, like, when we brought essential oils into clinical practice, people were like beating the crap out of us. And this was back in 2012. Now today, 2011, now today, even the most staunchy of doctors are like, hey, I got this little oil, you can diffuse it, it'll calm you down. And so they're starting to do it. And what I like about what you're doing is you're pushing the envelope of thought. You're making it okay. And what we're doing is we're taking topics. I have some big name people that have used urine therapy in like dire situations now, and have had complete reversals of their situations, like overnight. And I'm just waiting for them. And one of them is one of the top doctors on the planet. And I'm just waiting to have that conversation because it's going to come out soon. Because what we want to do is we want to bring the truth out. And that's what you're doing all the time. You're questioning things, bringing truth out. That's why you do all the research for me. I don't have to do any research. You've already done it.
Yeah. And a lot of it's experimentation and not needing to, be right before you do it. And that's, a lot of us in school got taught there's right and there's wrong. And so all we want to do, all we desire to do is fit into the box of correctness and of perfectness without allowing us to just be open and observing the experience. Because even if we go in a direction that's, what we would label as a wrong direction, we still learn in that experience, and then we carry that with us. And over a lifetime, we've got a fulfilling and gratifying and lesson-filled life.
Don't you wear sometimes don't you wear a big sarong?
So there's
because when you do it, it's so right.
Right, wrong, yeah. You're kind of losing me on these jokes. It's like you're going to a level that I'm not at, and it's like, wait, Gary, wait, wait up for me.
You know where it amplified, Rob, is I was doing 12, 14 hours a day on top of a body, pushing, pulling, and I had to learn to occupy my brain with, and for me, these type of jokes were the ones that I would occupy my brain with, because when you do that for a decade, it's like at some point it's like you want to scratch your eyes out if you're not doing something entertaining. How many times can you put your elbow?
You're actually living in a slapstick comedy movie while you're working on people.
Yeah, that's the way I did it. And it was because I have like you're working with the body, and you're working on their shoulder, and they got some problems in their bicep, and you just tell them that it's because it's humorous. And so I have all these jokes about the body, and I would just keep repeating them over and over again. And the funniest thing was, it was funny when people would laugh and get it, but the funniest ones is when you've been saying to the same thing to the same person for like they're in there for 12 weeks, like twice a week or something like that, and then somewhere on the 11th week they get it. Right.
They're like, I now know why you're saying that, and why you've been smiling.
So yeah, no, it's a good place to stop. We're on a high note, and looking forward to having you up here. We're gonna we have a pretty big indoor audience coming. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You get to hang out here.
I was expecting snow up there.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah.
It was snow when we came there today. Like, don't rule it out. But I think we can go for our cold dip in the ocean.
I know. I haven't been doing ice plunges. I was like, I better take some cold showers before I go up there.
This one will test you really well.
Oh, I know. Yeah. All right. Yeah, it gets painful if you're not conditioned for it, or if you let the pain in.
Well, yeah. But before you go in the water, you just tickle yourself, test it out. That way it doesn't hurt your testicle.
You know, all right.
He's on,
You continue on with the jokes.
he's on a roll today.
He is.